All good things must come to an end. Earth couldn't be farther out in space alone. In all directions it rolls along, unknown. Look at the stars piercing the depths of time. They beckon, warm and welcome, the fires of home. Sometimes the road is too long or the path too far, and suddenly the whims of fate are upon one as either a curse or a blessing, eventually even toward the final benediction that ever calls. Rascal Puff had assigned himself yet again to a major task of short notice, tempting the fates to counter the serendipity of his karma in the face of a probability that had no memory. Yet, Nona, who spun the thread of life from her distaff onto her spindle, was sound asleep. But Decima was active and measuring the thread of Rascal's life with her rod. And Morta, the cutter of the thread of life, was choosing the manner of his death. The incessantly turbulent world was still turning and overturning in and of its perpetual emotion. The personifications of destiny had recently visited doom on the earth. North Korea had gone nuclear and had thus been reduced to rubble. Iran, the birthplace of the arts, was but a memory. Iraq was still in civil war, its oil fields burning and useless. The Taliban yet threatened to take over Pakistan. The ice caps were nearly gone. The Russians were acting as Soviets once again.
You don't like jets, do you?
Not especially. I think I'll get off.
2 minutes.
The jet slowed. Rascal was out the door, and then free, falling into and through the foreign darkness. Ah, there it was. Hard to miss, for it was lit up like a Christmas tree at a carnival. Rascal flared his body and headed over and down toward the KGB maximum security prison, floating for a minute or two, then deployed his black chute and steered himself into the center of the very large roof, and then, after landing, used some heating equipment as a shield. The eyes of the corner towers had all been looking outward and downward, oblivious to the inward and upward directions. Was this not always the case with mankind? Rascal traversed the large ductwork, making some innocuous marks near the twists and turns that would guide him back out for his escape. He soon found his way into the heating plant, standing there but a few seconds before a guard walked by. The guard continued on, noting Rascal with tool in hand, wearing the right worker clothes and bearing an ID. In a while, a work crew of sorts was passing by, and so Rascal fell in behind them as they all headed into the cell blocks to relieve some masonry workers, many of the doors shutting and locking behind them. Rascal spotted the prisoner that he was after, noting a spare bed in the adjacent cell. He pretended to inspect some cement work near the cell. Shortly thereafter, the cells opened to let the men out for early morning exercise, and Rascal slipped into that adjacent cell, then removed his maintenance uniform to reveal the orange prison clothes underneath, and pretended to sleep while refining his plan. The prisoners were returned after an hour or so, and the guards left, not even noticing the additional inmate. Rascal motioned the prisoner of interest to come to the bars that separated their cells, and then managed to loop a wire around the man's neck, hinting that it would tighten if he screamed out.
Now, mind you, I already know some of the answers to the questions that I'm going to ask you, so if I catch you in a lie, the noose tightens a lot. Got it? On the third lie, you die.
Yes.
Did you send a look-alike to Argentina to interchange with Frederick?
No.
The wire was pulled taut and the man began gagging, soon changing his answer to yes. The wire loosened, but not a lot, just enough to allow for breathing.
Well, we caught him. Did you know that your so-called improved Botox factory self-destructed?
What? No!
I believe you, for you were imprisoned here before that occurred. You are in here due to theft?
Yes.
I knew that. Times must be tough for the conspiracy. What was to be the imposter's mission?
I don't know.
The wire dug into the man's neck, causing some bleeding as the man almost passed out.
Remember, we caught him. He talked. Now answer the question so I can know if I can depend on you. By the way, we deactivated his self-destruct mechanism.
He was to find and infiltrate the tow center, or rather, have them find him and bring him there for some emergency.
It wouldn't have worked.
Why?
If I told you, I would have to kill you.
The very tight wire loosened a bit.
So I see that you don't know the exact location of the tow center. Then what was to happen?
He would gain entrance quickly, without being checked thoroughly, to help with the crisis. Then he would send us all the tow data.
What crisis?
Random mortar strikes on Oahu.
From?
We have people around.
I believe you, for we just took them out recently.
Oh my.
What is your backup plan?
The wire grew tighter.
None.
More bleeding began.
Wait,
The wire eased up a bit.
there is always a backup plan. Stop being foolish. Death comes next. We have some knowledge of the backup plan. This is your last chance.
The noose tightened.
We borrowed a nuclear submarine from the Russians. It is near to sitting deep and undetected in an ocean trench.
When is the attack?
The wire tightened a bit.
Today, imminent even as we speak. It's unstoppable by you seeing.
Prisoner, tell me, who was it that bound you?
It was my master, said the prisoner. I thought I could outdo everybody in the world in wealth and power, and I amassed in my own treasure house the money due to my king. When sleep overcame me, I lay upon the bed that was for my lord, and on waking up, I found I was a prisoner in my own treasure house.
Prisoner, tell me, who was it that wrought this unbreakable chain?
It was I, said the prisoner, who forged this chain very carefully. I thought my invincible power would hold the world captive, leaving me in a freedom undisturbed. Thus, night and day I worked at the chain with huge fires and cruel hard strokes. When at last the work was done and the links were complete and unbreakable, I found that it held me in its grip.
Rascal's exit strategy was now a total mess, for he couldn't wait around for its scheduled happening. Was the third shift work crew coming on soon? He could slip out with the crew shift change. Would they check his ID as he left? Yes. And it wouldn't be in the computer, nor would they have a record of his entering. Rascal did what he had to do, which was what one would never do, and live. He took out his transmitter. Of course, this transmission would be noticed at the prison as well as elsewhere. They would be up here in a matter of minutes. Yet stars will watch at night, and morning rise as before, and hours heave like sea waves, casting up pleasures and pains. When I think of this end of my moments, the barrier of the moments breaks, and I see by the light of death thy world with its careless treasures. Rascal, after changing back to his work clothes, remotely blew off all the explosives on the prison roof. Rascal quickly finished the lasering of the cell bars that he had previously nearly cut all the way through, then carefully put them back as a kind of joke on whomever leaned against them. Then he quickly lasered shut the stairway door to the roof, welding it totally inoperable, and then ran down the hallways with the evacuating work crews. All hell soon broke loose, the minimal night guard shift running in total up the stairs toward the roof. Elf waves went out from Nihao to the fleet, and the hunt was immediately underway. Subs plunged into the dangerous depths of the ocean trench. Go too deep and you would never come back. The conspiracy sub was a suicide sub, nearly in its place, after probably following the deep trench for a day or so, from which it could never surface, but could still launch from, its missiles unstoppable at such a short range. Arriving at the front door checkout station with the work crews, Rascal could see freedom outside, but there was a holdup. The prison was going into lockdown. No one could leave, although a few already had. These intermediate times of chaos and uncertainty were the best times to act, so Rascal fired his mini machine gun into the checkout station, blasting the door window beyond two, then dove through it and ran on out the next to last door that led to the lobby, carefully welding it shut afterwards, imprisoning all within, prisoners of their own prison. Startled would-be visitors hit the floor as Rascal raced out the main doors, welding them shut too. Fire engines and police were already racing toward the prison, and the officers would surely round up anyone wandering about outside this disaster. Rascal looked up at the guard towers, expecting to be shot, but the men in the towers were now all looking inward to the roof that was in flames. My kingdom for a horse, he thought. He gently removed an old lady from her car and drove off leisurely toward the oncoming emergency vehicles, a half a mile or so, even pulling to the side of the road so that they could pass, and stayed there. The police would soon be upon everyone anyway, their emergency escort duties having greatly diminished. There was a grove of trees with huge mountains beyond. Rascal crawled along the ground, then crept through the beginning of the forest. Rascal took off his work clothes and then rolled them up, covered them with mud, and threw them down a deep gully. He laughed at himself now, being clad in bright prison orange. He got rid of his overshirt, then cut his pants into shorts and turned them inside out. He now looked like kind of a normal person out for a stroll, instead of a blazing target. Up the hill, and then the mountain steep he went, steadily but unhurriedly, sensing direction from the stars of the night sky. Putting some distance in between was now the chief objective, so Rascal moved quickly, ever onward. These, the fires of home, would guide him to his end. He had walked for 20 hours, living on nourishment from streams, plants, and edible berries. Then made a cover and slept for 12, now half dead. Death retreated, as its fair brother, sleep, restored him to health. Several times Rascal heard helicopters approaching and had to hide, noting the fully armed ships and the Russians inside peering out. Too weak to continue, Rascal sent out the 3 blips and waited. How the heck was someone now going to land in Russia unnoticed and rescue him, gathering strength for the journey of 1,000 miles across Mother Russia that would soon have to begin with a single step? friend. Art thou abroad on this stormy night on thy journey of love, my friend? The sky groans like one in despair. I have no sleep tonight. Ever and again I open my door and look out on the darkness, my friend. I can see nothing before me. I wonder where lies thy path. By what dim shore of the ink-black river? By what far edge of the frowning forest? Through what mazy depth of gloom art thou threading thy course to come to me, my friend? The angel of light finds Rascal to bless and says, "Old Puff, I must soon repossess your clay, so let us drink to your success." He drinks and smiles, ready for life's last caress. Old Rascal reclines on the grass, near death. The dark angel arrives and to him saith, "Drink one last deep draught from life's precious cup." The Puff smiles and sips, then breathes his last breath. An older but fully armed Soviet-era helicopter gunship approached and quickly passed over as Rascal peeked at it from some bushes. "They are going someplace else and not looking for me anymore," he noted. Yet it soon returned and landed nearby. If they had discovered him, more troops would soon be sent into the area. So, this was the end then, of my time in the middle of nowhere within the greater nowhere in a spiral arm of the Milky Way, Rascal surmised. I should have kept my desk job. So, Rascal is alone amid the splendor of mountainous nature on the beauteous earth as the enemy closes in. Russian eyes are everywhere for 1,000 miles in all directions, looking for anything unusual. 0-0 is all over the place on the Russian roulette wheel. Snake eyes roll. When I go from hence, let this be my parting word, that what I have seen is unsurpassable. I have tasted of the hidden honey of this lotus that expands on the ocean of light, and thus am I blessed. Let this be my parting word. In this playhouse of infinite forms, I have had my play.
Rascal, come out from wherever you are. How did you guys get this? You don't want to know. Hop aboard. I know it's old, but we tuned it up well. Do we have enough fuel, Robert? Maybe, maybe not, but we will fly at low altitude to avoid curiosity and to conserve fuel. We've added extra tanks, but I hate the uncertainty principle. We'll be looking for a NATO freighter pulling out of port. We can't land on that. No, but we will anyway. Who made this plan? A fiction writer? Yes, and it was the best we could do on such short notice. I even took the weekend off from work. I see no pursuit. The Russians must have heard my blips. They did, or just about did, as we knew they might, so we instantly sent out more blips by remote control from transmitters all over the place. Fortunately, they're still tracking down the wrong ones, or have given up. Do you know how to fly this thing, Robert? No, for the pedals are reversed. You are getting used to this? Heck no, I just reversed my feet, crossing my legs over. Crikey.
Many hours later, they were on approach to the coast, the fuel gauge already having read empty for the last 20 minutes.
Robert, how are we running on no fuel? As with new American cars, the gauge is offset ahead a bit so one has time to get to a gas station. This is not a car, and we are in Russia, and we are using an old Soviet machine. Oops. Now what? The freighter probably got delayed by typical Russian red tape. It may be yet coming out of the harbor, though. Do we have any subs around? Not this close in. Are we heading out to sea? Yes, we can float on a raft. There's a huge storm coming in. Okay, we'll turn around. You were gonna do that anyway.
The helicopter then gained as much altitude as it could, and then the fuel gave out.
Great Mother of England. Hold on, I see the ship racing out. We're going to land on a freighter without a landing pad with no fuel? The rotors will slow our descent. Not good enough. I turned off the fuel when I heard a sputter. We probably have about 30 seconds worth left.
And you're going to turn the engines back on just in time.
Yes.
The helicopter was literally spiraling down to the rendezvous to crash as Robert restarted the engine, slowing it somewhat, then a bit more. The copter hovered, then fell.